everyone's really made a lot out of the team's flying start this year. 7 for 7, hopefully going 8 for 8 this weekend. But how do you guys try to maintain that success and not only deal with the pressures of yourselves, wanting to go out and win each week, but also from the fans and the pundits and everyone saying like, Red Bull's going to win every race and do all that kind of stuff like that. So how do you keep up the success and maintain all that and block out all that pressure?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just very important that you look at yourself. I mean, it doesn't really matter, of course, what people are saying, from the outside, because you have to just focus on what you can control, and that's within the team, right, and the car, and that's what we are doing. And of course, we had a really good start to the year, and of course, we would like to keep that going. But sometimes it can also be a bit out of your hands what is happening throughout the weekend. Of course, here in Montreal at the moment, it looks like it's going to be quite a rainy weekend, so that in general always brings a bit more, a few more unknowns, and probably some unpredictable things that happen. But that's fine. I mean, it's a very long season, and it's all about just trying to maximize the result every single weekend.
You mentioned it's a long season, and I know Imola obviously, got postponed due to the flooding, but I think it's 23 races, obviously minus that one, unless it gets postponed. So how do you kind of deal with that, knowing this is the longest season in F1 history, and it isn't just great, we're going to go out there and just have a fun time. It is, we want to go out there and win week in and week out. So, what's that toll like for you physically, mentally, emotionally, and how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's very long. It's a lot of traveling. But it helps when you have a good car, because then every time, of course, that you get to a weekend, you can have a good shot of winning a race. So the motivation is probably always a bit higher when you have a car like that.
Certainly, the motivation, the expectations, everything seems to be magnified, not only due to the success you guys are having, but this little show called Drive to Survive, which is absolutely blown up over here in the States. So, how are you dealing with that extra pressure of, probably doing more media, more interviews, more appearances probably than ever before?
Well, I mean, to be honest, of course, I know that it has been around, and it really increased the popularity, especially, here on US, Canada, and in general, a lot more. But yeah, I mean, from my side, I just focus on what I can control. I mean, of course, maybe, you create more fans and people maybe, following the sport. But for me, that doesn't really impact my preparation to a weekend or what I do on the track.
I was going to say, how has that impacted you personally, knowing that you are one of the stars, obviously one of the more successful drivers, certainly in the last couple of years? Is it just kind of business as usual that you're going to keep doing that same routine week in and week out?
Well, I mean, I can definitely see that throughout a weekend, there are more fans around, not only on the racetrack, but also back at the hotels or in the city itself, right? So you definitely have a bit less privacy, which I am normally always, I'm pretty private. I don't like to be there in the open. I just want to live my life outside of the racetrack as well. But definitely, that is a bit more of a limitation. So you have to just get around that. I mean, it's not so easy anymore compared to a few years ago, where you maybe arrive one day early and enjoy the city a little bit. You walk around. These kind of things you cannot do really realistically, unless, of course, you don't mind getting bothered. But I do, so I just fly in as late as possible, and I try to leave as early as I can, just back home, and try to spend that free time I have with family and friends.
Yeah, you kind of segued into my next question. Obviously, doing this for Forbes, I'm kind of curious, as one of the world's highest paid athletes, and just with reach and popularity and influence, bigger than ever before. I'm sure for you, what kind of, in interest do you have off the track? Whether it's something business related, investing, entrepreneurial, and how are you kind of using? I don't want to say newfound fame, but especially in North America, maybe I guess newfound fame, to leverage the Max Verstappen brand, off the track more.
Yeah, I'm like I said before, I'm pretty private, and I don't really like to be out there. So, probably I could do more if I really want to, but for me, it's not really about that. I came into the sport because I loved racing, and of course, the popularity went up, and I've been winning races, winning championships, and naturally, you make new deals, you earn more money. But at the end of the day, that is not why I'm in the sport, because and it also that is not a reason why it would keep me in the sport, because it's all about just feeling happy and that you love what you're doing, and that you can always tell yourself, are you fully committed to what you're doing? And as long as I can say to myself, yes, I am, and I'm doing everything I can to to get the best out of myself every year, then I'm staying. But yeah, when I'm at home, or just future plans, I have a lot of plans, but at the moment it's just very difficult to execute them because you're so busy with racing. But a lot of things that I'm looking at for the future, racing related mainly, but outside of Formula One, and it's probably just have a bit more fun, but also create maybe um, pathways for other young talent to come through, not necessarily to Formula One, but in any kind of racing, really.
I love that. Yeah. And like you said, I'm sure you're so focused on the task at hand, which is going out and winning races, that you don't even have time for, this business proposal or this investment or that kind of stuff like that. So
Well, I
I think,
mean, yeah, just if things come along that are interesting to you, or it's also a bit of a passion, right? Then naturally you can dedicate a bit more time to it. But some things that come along, I probably or personally don't really understand. Then already, it's a bit more difficult to invest in these kind of things. But of course, I have a lot of people around me as well that advise me, and we are always quite careful with the things that we do. But for me, that works really well at the moment.
I was going to say, how important is that, having that team? I've spoken to, other athletes, whether they're soccer players, American football, NBA, whatever, that they talk about the team on the field or on the court, obviously for you on the racetrack, but how important is it having that team, away from sport, that they can help you, like you said, with kind of advising and just helping out with all these different opportunities?
That's very important, and it's not easy to find, because a lot of people come around when you are having success and they act, potentially like a friend or whatever. But I think it's very important to always surround yourself with people that you can trust already before you even, got into the sport. So luckily, the people I have around me, I know them from a very long time already since I was a little kid, and yeah, I trust them to the fullest. And yeah, that's not always the easiest, like I said, but for now, yeah, it's working really well, and we are enjoying it.
That's great. Yeah, you talk about that enjoyment and that longevity. As long as you're having fun, you want to keep doing this and keep doing this. And you're what, 25 now, so still obviously very young. Hopefully, lots of years, if not decades, still in F1. But how do you have that career longevity? I think Hamilton's 38. Other guys, in their 40s, Schumacher 43 when he retired. So how do you try to have that career longevity like some of those other guys, and keep doing this for years and years?
Well, it also depends of what your goals are, right? I mean, some people they love racing because that's the only thing they do really. For me, I love racing. I mean, I still do, but I also want to do other things than only Formula One at some stage. Of course, I know that this is the pinnacle and the highest you can achieve, and I think it's also a bit of a you said a bit of a different perspective, right? Because now that I've won two titles, that how you say desire of like if you wouldn't have won them, you keep on trying, you keep on wanting to achieve something like that. And now that I've done so, that it's nice. I mean, it's nice to win another one and another one, but basically it's the same thing. So it doesn't it's not something that will keep me here forever. It's more about, well, like I said before, if I can motivate myself every single year to the fullest, to be here. Because like you said before, with the race calendar being so long, you're away from family and friends a lot as well. And I find that at one point, what is more important? Is it winning races and being away from them, or is it actually being at home and spending time with the dearest or closest to you in a time of your life where you're still fully fit, very active, and you can still do anything you want, right? And maybe, if you look back at it, if you stayed in F1 until you're like 40 or whatever, 42, it might be that you are like, well, maybe I stayed too long and I actually didn't spend enough time with my close ones. So this is something is still a big question mark for me, and how long I will stay in the sport.
I love that perspective. Yeah, I feel some people are like, I want to keep going until they drag me off the court or they drag me off the circuit or something like that. And you're like, hey, listen, this is something that's in the back of my mind, that it might not be forever, because I do have other things that I value just as much. What would you say are, again, I'm not saying, what's the time peg? You want to race until you're 40 or a certain number, but knowing Mercedes, has kind of been that goal for you guys at Red Bull. They got the 8 straight constructors championships, and I know that's something that Red Bull wants to not only equal but surpass. How important is that kind of as the I don't want to see the albatross, but the goal for you guys knowing that, okay, this is kind of what we want to do and want to achieve, over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I have a contract anyway until the end of 28, so that will mean that I'm 31 at the time, so that's still a long time, right? But yeah, for me, honestly, about these like records or goals, I just try to enjoy the moment, because I know that in Formula One these things can change very quickly from year to year, right? If you're the leading team or whatever, second, third team. So yeah, it's difficult to predict these kind of things, but it's important to. I always say, like, winning is great, and we are very focused every race that we get the best out of it. But it's also very important to enjoy what you're actually doing, because time goes by so quickly in this sport as well that sometimes you might forget about it.
hmm where have you, if you don't mind me asking, where have you kind of gotten that very, it's like a very present kind of perspective that you're like, I'm in this moment right now. I don't want to look too far ahead. I don't want to look behind. Like, where's that kind of come from for you? Is it just kind of your life experience? Is it parents? Your racing experience? Like, where's that kind of come from?
Yeah, I think my parents in general, we're not really dreamers. We just, live in the moment, and we try to make the best of that, because yeah, well, whatever the future brings, I mean, or whatever it holds, right? I mean, yeah, we just get on with it, and we'll deal with it, when it arrives. So I think it's a bit in the family for sure.
I gotcha. I gotcha. And I sit here, and my next question is about establishing that next F1 dynasty, something that, like I said, Mercedes had, you guys are trying to achieve. So I hate to, ask you too far about the future, but how does Red Bull go about saying, like, we're that next dynasty, we're that next measuring stick that all the other, brands and companies and teams need to catch up to?
I mean, to be honest, Red Bull has done it already, right? They've won four in a row before Mercedes, so they already showed that they are capable of doing these kind of things, and of course we want to do it again, and that's what we're doing at the moment. Yeah, we'll find out how long it will last, but I think we have a good group of people, to keep it going, and hopefully, of course, we all stay together and stick together for a while.
Yeah, but like you said, it's more taking it race by race instead of, hey, 3 years from now when we have three more titles under our belts, here's where we'll be type.
Yeah. We'll see by then, what happens. It's at the moment very important that we just go race by race, and just, make sure that we are working very well together.
Definitely. Looking race by race, like you said, how do you guys, succeed in Montreal this weekend? What's it going to take?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's quite a bit of rain around, so that will always make it a bit more interesting, a bit more unpredictable. A lot of things can happen in the wet. But yeah, if you look at the start of the year so far, we have a great car, especially, of course, in the dry. In the wet, yeah, some surprises sometimes, might come up. But overall, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, because with a car like this, it's normally always very enjoyable to drive.
Definitely. You talked about, and we kind of started out talking about the popularity of F1, and especially in the United States. What's it like to see that grow so much here? I know Miami was just last month or a month and a half ago, and the crowd that was there. Vegas is upcoming, obviously the US Grand Prix as well. So just how exciting is it to see F1, grow in popularity in the US? And I know Red Bull, I think I saw a stat, it was 72% of, US F1 fans are Red Bull fans as well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's been great, because, of course, we came back. Well, for me, the first race was in 2015 in Austin, and when you look at it now, it's crazy how much it has grown. Of course, more Grand Prix in the US, which I think is anyways is a great thing. But yeah, also the whole city, around it, like so many people come and have a good time, and have fun. They love watching Formula One, but they also love to have a good time around it. So I think, yeah, it's a whole kind of a show for the whole weekend for people as well, and it's great to see. I mean, unfortunately, I cannot really be part of that, right? I have to focus throughout a race weekend, but it's nice to see people having a good time and having fun.
Yeah, yeah. You have your own things to focus on. The rest of us will sit and drink and have fun and predict how fast you're going to finish, before everybody else.
Exactly.
Yeah, knowing that, and I touched on Vegas too. Again, I know it's so far away. You have Montreal and probably 15, 20, 20 other races between now and Vegas. But what's that, do you think is going to be like? I think Christian came out and said it's going to be everyone who's everyone is going to be in Las Vegas that race weekend, and racing on a Saturday night, on the strip, on the boulevard. Just, what are your kind of expectations for the excitement around that?
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. I mean, everyone I speak to, they want to go to Vegas. I think they anyway wanted to go to Vegas, and now with an F1 Grand Prix, yeah, it's gonna be very hectic, but I think the scenery is gonna be amazing. The where they positioned the track as well, it's unbelievable that they made it work, and I'm curious to see how that weekend will pan out. But I think it's gonna be yeah, pretty insane.
Yeah, quite an event to say the least.
Yeah.
You guys race all around the world, Singapore, Baku, coming to Vegas, like we're talking about. Are there any locations that you were like, hey, I wish we could race, in a certain country or a certain city that you'd love to race at?
To be honest, I think the only one really missing is still in Africa. So maybe, have a race in South Africa. They had a race there, of course, in the past. And yeah, that would be cool, to have a race on the calendar, somewhere in Africa.
I love it. Awesome. And I think our time's coming to an end here shortly. So I'm going to put you on the spot. And I know, you don't want to talk too far in advance, but can Red Bull win every race this year?
Well, that's what we'll try to do. But it's something which is probably unrealistic at the end. But at the moment, with how the car is performing, it is possible.
I love
But
it.
we don't dream too much. We just like I said, race by race.